kind of cuts off the head, but it's hard to move after I get here. Alright, and then upward facing dog. Hey, there we go. Alright, so Brandon, West, thank you for the advice. Cool stuff. And relax. Upward facing dog. So one of the things I do differently in my upward facing dog is I point the fingers towards the toes. It gives me more sensation, more stimulation on the forearms and the wrists. And so I like that. So that's pretty cool. And then relax. You got the low back in place. That's good. The purpose of this upward facing dog for me is to get the back ready for the next pose, which is going to be a wheel pose. And just relax. Get another 8 seconds. And I got my timer set for 3 minutes, so I usually do about 3 minutes per pose. So I have enough time to get in it and hold it. Alright, and that's it for that. Next up, wheel pose. Yay, wheel pose. Alright, so we'll try and do, the side's not the greatest, because the way I get to wheel pose is I start with fish pose, grab the thighs, lift the chest off the earth, crown of the head towards the earth, and lift the feet and the hands. There you go, fish pose. Free, no support. Yeah. Hold that for a moment. It can be pretty taxing, especially on the abs when you're not used to it. I haven't done it for a while. Hands down, feet down, and then hands down. And wheel pose. There we go. And relax. Yeah, so that's first minute of my 3-minute timer. Left-handed first, so I'm gonna do some half pigeons. Holy crap, that looks dangerous. And your wrists face out for this. What, for the wheel pose? I guess, yeah. It takes a lot of practice, so I've been doing this for a while. And that's really all it takes, right? Just practice. Daily practice, right? So if you check in tomorrow or any other day this week, I'll probably be here at about 8 a.m. How long is a long while? So I originally started practicing yoga right after I got divorced, of course, in 2003. But I didn't really get hardcore into it until about 2010, which is right when I graduated law school. And I've been doing these videos for, since November or so? October, November, around that time frame. So 4 or 5 months. And I'd been practicing by myself, right? But as soon as I started videoing this, that's when I really started doing it every day. And for some of these poses, right? What it really takes is motivation, desire. But it takes about 6 months of practice for any particular pose to get good at it. How many hours do I devote to practicing yoga? This is pretty much it, right? So I'm going to be doing this for about half an hour this morning. And that's about it. About 6 years. Doing it hardcore. More or less, yeah. I became a teacher, certified yoga instructor. And then I taught for a little bit. And when I was teaching, I was doing it every day. Hey, got a new viewer. Awesome stuff. Alright, so next up, I did my back bend. So now, forward fold. 3 minutes. Alright, and this is just kind of a routine, ordinary forward fold. So basically, do this to start off my day. That is correct. Pretty much. Start off the day every day. And so, as I may have said, I've got a 3-minute timer, and I hold most poses for about 3 minutes. But I've got work to do, right? So I can only devote so much time to this. That's why I did the wheel pose, right? Then I did a couple half pigeons, and each one of those I spent about a minute on it. Most of the other poses I hold for about 3 minutes. And that's what really allows you to get good in your practice. It's just daily practice, holding the pose for a couple minutes. And you'll also notice that most of the poses that I pick are more flexibility poses as opposed to strength and endurance poses. Because I like the feeling of flexibility more than just standing in a warrior pose. If I wanted strength and flexibility, right, I'd lift weights and do cardio. Or strength and endurance, right, I'd lift weights and do cardio. But I want flexibility from yoga, so I do flexibility poses. And then just relax. All right. Yeah, for my yoga, I definitely prefer flexibility over strength. But if I want to build strength, right, that's what weights are for. Right? Of course, you can build strength through yoga, right? But if you want to build strength and bulk up, that's what lifting weights are for. So for me, yoga is more about mind and body, peace, connection, right? Peaceful connection between mind and body. Feel that. And I get that mostly through flexibility exercises. Another 28 seconds. And relax. So when you do a position, is it good to sway in it to get controllable? Right, to each their own, right? But I would say yes. Right, you got to make things a little bit different. And actually, it is kind of good to sway a little bit just so you can test your boundaries and feel where you are in the pose. All right, so now I'm doing forward folding stuff. Today's 27th, so left leg first. All right, so open the hips, hip openers. We'll start off with the hamstring stretch. And yeah, usually when I start to get into a pose, I'll wiggle around a little bit. And when you're first learning a pose, it's not so easy to wiggle around because just getting into it is kind of your wiggling around room. But after you start to reliably get into a pose, that's when you can wiggle around a little more. And so yeah, all right, hip openers. So shin to chest, watch out, the hip slides over, the muscle slides over the hip, muscle slides over the bone, and then get the foot behind the head. Yay, foot behind the head. And so this is pretty cool, right? Hey, got another viewer, awesome stuff. So I can see, but I can't read anymore because I'm too far away from the computer. But it's cool stuff, right? This is practice. When I've been able to do feet behind the head before in my life, right? But I kind of lost it because I was focusing more on strength, lifting weights. And then recently, about a month ago, something like that, a month or two, maybe, more like a month, I started incorporating this pose to this daily practice, right? And when I first did it, I could not get my foot all the way behind my head. I could get my foot towards my head. I could touch the skull with my shin, right, the top of the head, and then slowly I was able to start working it back. And actually only recently, in the past week or two, have I been able to just comfortably get into this pose. Because what normally happens is the thigh freaks out, right? Because this is not a normal position that you have in your daily life. And again, yeah, I see stuff getting written, but I can't quite read it yet. And so yeah, when you get into this pose, one of the things that will happen is you have this big stretch on the muscle, number one. Number two, the blood flow gets constricted in the left thigh. And those are two things you are not ready for the first time. When you first start getting into this pose and you start holding it for longer periods of time, like the 3-minute timer that I keep on it. So, yeah, you gotta be careful with the body. And then also there's the standard lecture I do about the difference between pain and sensation. If you're feeling any pain, don't do it. Stop. Pull back to a point where you're not feeling any pain. So, by that definition, right, I don't feel any pain when I do these poses. All right, so I got to catch up a little bit. Yes, I am very flexible. All right, and can you achieve both flexibility and strength, or is it always compromise? You can do whatever you want, right? So, I have other life issues. I have Crohn's disease, so that kind of prevents me from bulking up because I can. All right, so you stop immediately if you feel pain. Well, you should feel back. I'm not a vegan. I'm actually quite the opposite of a vegan. I tried vegan, but it didn't work out for me. All right, the pain and threshold lecture, or pain and sensation lecture. There's a difference between pain and sensation, right? There's a threshold, right? Before that is just sensation. You're fine. You're fine. You're fine. Increasing amounts of sensation. Then you start getting into the pain area, right? And increasing amounts of pain. So you can stop immediately, or, right, you can go back to where you're you're below the pain threshold, you feel sensation. So you feel a lot of sensation, but not pain. And, I mean, that's how you get good at this stuff. It's just daily practice. Find your limit, right? Find your pain threshold limit. Stay behind that pain threshold, and then hold it for 3 minutes. So yeah. And then both sides will be a little bit different. For me in particular, my right side is usually a little bit more flexible than my left side. But then also, when you do this enough, there's usually a second side bias. The second side that you do in a pose is usually a little bit more open or ready to go when you're practicing. So my right side is a little bit more flexible. I can get into that a little bit easier. And plus it's the second side today, so it's a little bit easier to get into it as well. And again, it's pretty cool because my thigh used to really kind of freak out, right? Used to have lots and lots of sensation. Used to be very close to the pain threshold. But now it's pretty cool. Kind of chill. So good stuff. And with regards to strength and flexibility, yes, you can have both. But again, for me personally, I have Crohn's disease and I don't take any meds for it. I have a special diet that I follow. Lots of protein, a little bit of carbs, and basically no sugar or other starchy carbs, right? The only carbs I have is some sweet potato, and that's it. It's an extremely low carbohydrate diet. And that seems to work for me. 13 seconds left. Yeah, and with a super low calorie diet that I've got, I've never been able to put on muscle. But yeah, if you can, right, I mean, you could be a bodybuilder, right, and put on muscle, and then flexibility is easy. It's just the same thing like weights, right? If you do it every day, you'll be good at it, and you'll see the benefits. All right, captured a moment. By the way, just joined. Cool stuff. And the person watching. So pain means you're pushing it too far. Yes, that is exactly correct. If you start to feel pain, yeah, you've gone too far. All right, so the super calorie diet is because of your disease. Yes, instead of taking lots and lots of medications and getting multiple additional surgeries, I was able to figure out how to use my diet to control the symptoms of my Crohn's disease, which really sucks, right? Because that means nowadays I don't go out to bars, I don't go out to restaurants, I don't do any other kind of social activity because I just don't go out that much. But that's TMI, right? Too much information. But it keeps me healthy, right? And I keep myself flexible. And so this is my hamstring exercise, right? I started off with Janu Sirsasana, and then I folded over to this guy. I don't know what this pose is called, but it's really, really awesome. As soon as you can start to get into this pose, it feels fantastic. Because it stretches out the right side body, the right rib cage, the right shoulder, stretches out the left thigh muscle, hip and thigh, and a lot of the way the body is actually pressed into the thigh muscle. So not only do you get a stretch by the positioning of the joints, but the pressure from the earth pushing into the muscle actually creates a lot of nice sensation in this pose as well. And then you might notice I've got my left hand. I slide that under my right thigh, and that allows me to lock the elbow straight and then turn the elbow towards the earth. And so when I do that, that rotates the ball and socket joint, the ball inside of the socket of the left shoulder. And usually I'll get a little pop or something in there. And then, so for this pose, I've practiced this enough that when I get into here, I can just kind of chill out. It feels really good. I can feel that left thigh stretch. And another 30 seconds. Let's see here. Got a new watcher. I'm sure your practice helps as well. Yep, good stuff. So cool. Using diet to replace medication. Oh yeah. It is super cool. In fact, there was a time I was taking lots and lots of meds, and that sucked. And I didn't feel healthy either, even though I was taking all the meds. So that's when I kind of revitalized and said, hey, there's got to be a better way, and I figured it out. Not an easy process. All right, that's the left side, that's the left leg. Body's got two sides, now the right leg. All right, no meds. Don't promote health at all. Well, it depends, right? Sometimes medication is exactly what you need, right? Sometimes it's not. Usually if it's something that you have to take every day, I kind of don't like that. Right? The body is supposed to be correct. But there are certain diseases, right, where the body just doesn't produce what it's supposed to be producing, and in that case you should take meds. But for my case, for my particular disease, it's not, at least at the time, it wasn't a very well understood disease. And so the meds really just kind of treat symptoms, they don't treat the root cause. Crohn's disease is an autoimmune disease, right? The immune system starts attacking the small intestines. So the typical medical treatment, medications are just to weaken the immune system. Right? But it doesn't address, well, why is the immune system going haywire? Hey, who knows? And so for me it was serendipitous, right, that it is a disease that can be controlled through diet by eating the right things. Which is kind of funny, right? Because for me, with all the yoga, right, there's a lot of people that do yoga that like vegan and like to go vegan, right? I tried that. It does not work for me. I have to eat a lot of protein, and that's just what works for me. When I tried vegan, I was not very healthy because I couldn't eat any protein. Couldn't eat any nuts or anything. My main source of protein is primarily chicken, and without that, it's like, well, where are you gonna get your protein from, buddy? Yeah, tofu, but tofu didn't work for me, right? My stomach with everything else going on. The typical sources of protein that vegans use just were not compatible with my system. So beans and tofu didn't work with me. So I'm actually more of a as far as dietary aspects go, I'm more of an anti-vegan. I eat lots and lots of protein with just a little bit of sweet potato. But beyond that, no other sugars, no other starches, no other carbohydrates, no bread, no rice, no pasta, no flour, no white potatoes, only sweet potatoes, and some berries and fruits. Hey, and that is that. Cool stuff. All right. Any comments to catch up on how long and what do you do to warm up before you start yoga? I don't do anything. That's another lecture that I've got. So for me, for yoga, right, I've had a lot of practice with it, and I used to teach hot yoga, and you'd always kind of like warm up, right, especially with hot yoga. You'd get into the warm room, and pardon me, I gotta fix the man parts. And one thing I noticed was that when I would do hot yoga and I'd stretch, right, and I'd warm up and I'd stretch, and I'd feel like, oh, hey, I can get really deep into these stretches after warming up, right? Then I noticed that, well, hey, I can only get really deep into these stretches after I've warmed up. So at that point for me, it was a conscious decision just to try. You know, what's it like if I started off cold and tried to get into the position after, but before, quote unquote, warming up. And you have to go slow, right? You have to be mindful of your pain threshold because you're not going to get as deep as quickly if you're not warmed up. But if you manage yourself, right? If you stay behind the pain threshold and you start your practice without warming up, to me, it feels like it leads to more enhanced flexibility, because instead of only being flexible when you're warm, you'll be more flexible all the time. So, do I warm up before I start practicing? No, I don't. I just kind of start practicing most of the time. Relax. And so yeah, wide splits. I've been doing wide splits for a long time. It took me about 6 months from not being able to do wide splits to being able to do wide splits. Daily practice. And so nowadays it's more actually just a maintenance pose. I keep doing it just to make sure that I can still do it. And then I've added this, the arms to my wide splits just to get some more stretching on the body. So the arm position is actually kind of new for me. And then my left hand is easier to find the scapula than my right hand, my right arm. And then what you really want to do is you want the middle finger, you want the tip of that to go towards the neck. But then you relax and you feel the stretch. And so here in this stretch, right, since I've been doing this a long time, this is when you can fidget around a little bit, feel what that's like, to get some extra sensation. And that's that. All right, anything to catch up on? A lot of people watching, got another fan. All right, so I start practicing immediately, but you take it slow. That is exactly correct. That is perfect. And that's another reason why I've got the 3-minute timer right? So I slowly get into the pose, then I hold the pose, right? It takes 30 seconds to a minute to get into a pose, and then I hold it for 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes. All right. So this is the final pose of my practice, which is a handstand, which I may or may not be able to do. So start from yogi squat. Get the arms parallel to the earth. Very good. And then hands to the earth. For my hands, a lot of people like to do the hands straight up away. I don't like that. That doesn't work for my wrists. So I actually do the hands to the side, open the fingers. And then from here, from the yogi squat, usually I like to go into crow pose. So shins to the upper arms. There we go. Looks like I may have some decent balance today. Every day is different. And then maybe I can lift up today. Oh, look at that. A little bit. Almost. Balance, maybe. All right. Well, that's it for today. All right. Good stuff. Well, hey, Brandon, awesome stuff. Thanks for watching, and thanks for the cool conversation. It's always great to talk to new people and meet them. All right, but we always told we will hurt our muscle if we stretch before your muscle is warmed up, but you don't find that's true. So hurt your muscle if you stretch before your muscle is warmed up. Oh, yeah, right? Because, right, it's to each their own, right? If you start exercising too vigorously first, right, then that gets back to the sensation and pain threshold, right? If you start exercising too vigorously, you won't feel your pain threshold as much, right? And then you go past that, and then bad things happen, right? So that's the critical thing, right? Is to feel your pain threshold, and that's why, if you do start something cold, you have to be much more cognizant and aware of where your pain threshold is. So yeah, especially the first time you start doing cold stretches, you have to be aware of that, and then you also have to allow your ego. Right? Your ego says, oh, I can get deeper into this pose. It's like, dude, chill out. When you're warmed up, yes, you can get deeper, but right now you're not warmed up, so you have to pull back, right? It's allowing yourself to pull back and just hold the pose and at a point where you feel sensation, but you don't feel pain. Because when you can do that, right, that's you conquering your ego, number one. Number two, as you start to do that, as you start to find that threshold day in, day out, weeks, months, usually pretty quick, weeks or months, about that time frame, that threshold starts to extend, right? So you can't achieve a wide splits today because it's too painful at a certain degree between the legs. You pull back, right, and you can feel that, and it's good. It's a nice sensation. You hold for 3 minutes. You do that every day. Then your threshold will increase because that's the way the body works. That's just how it does it. All right. Yeah. The ego makes you push. So, and that's one of the big things about life, right, is conquering that ego so you don't get too caught up with yourself. But in any case, again, awesome. Thank you so much. Maybe I'll see you tomorrow. I should be back at around 8 a.m. But I got to get going. I got to eat. I got to go to work. I had a regular day job, all that good stuff. So take care, and y'all have fun.